that small U-bend on the River Thames. It's been at the heart of Britain's maritime history for centuries, integral to the prosperity of London since Roman times. Explorers sailed away on voyages of discovery from here, colonies were established, and a great empire grew. Vast amounts of exotic goods from across the world were unloaded on this stretch of water. Funding those ships and cargoes made the City of London the world's financial centre. But this artery to the city soon became congested by the ever-growing number of ships. It was said there were once so many boats here that you could walk from one side of the Thames to the other without touching the water. So they built a vast network of inland docks for the vessels arriving from every corner of the globe. London became the world's greatest port city. The Germans bombed the living daylights out of the docks, and they became pretty much derelict. But by the end of the 20th century, that desolate wasteland had been transformed into Docklands, a new financial centre. Docklands, the future, a new way to live. It was skyscrapers, it was luxury flats, it was going to be the Manhattan of the East End. As if. A futuristic driverless railway that goes through the air, the DLR, like something out of Dan Dare. Everything upwardly mobile. And the yuppies. Yes, a right bunch of Barclays bankers. Gordon Gecko. Mobile phones with car batteries. Suits with the sleeves rolled up. Black leather. Everything. Towers reaching to the skies in supplication to the god of Mammon. I saw an advert in the evenings.
Mammon.
Makes me feel
what? Sorry.
Inspired terror in the hearts of the...
It skips.
...in silk and tea.
The screen.
On
Ruined it.
9/11, dodging giant cranes in this enormous building site.
Right there.
Too much derelict. But by the end of the 20th century, that desolate wasteland had been transformed into Docklands, a new financial centre. Docklands, the future, a new way to live. It was skyscrapers, it was luxury flats, it was going to be the Manhattan of the East End. As if. A futuristic driverless railway that goes through the air, the DLR, like something out of Dan Dare. Everything upwardly mobile. And the yuppies. Yes, a right bunch of Barclays bankers. Gordon Gecko. Mobile phones with car batteries. Suits with the sleeves rolled up. Black leather. Everything.
It was worth it.
Towers reaching to the skies in supplication to the god of Mammon. I saw an advert in the Evening Standard. They were doing show tours of the luxury flats. Mind, there are only two finished at this point amongst the wasteland. But the advert said, if you bought a penthouse apartment off plan, they'd throw in a Porsche. So, me and my mate Paul put our ties on, rolled up the sleeves of our suits and headed on down there. We had no intention of putting a deposit on anything, but bang up for having a go on a Porsche. Next thing, much to the consternation of the slippery estate agent, we were donutting around in this tangerine 911, dodging giant cranes in this enormous building site, what we all know now as Canary Wharf. On the very site of what was the West India Dock, where all the plunder from the Caribbean was unloaded.
Pirates.
Cotton, tobacco, coffee, rum and sugar, all of which was harvested on the backs of slaves.
Yep.
From here, the West India merchants traded, like the Royal Africa Company, who shipped more Africans to the Americas than any other company in the history of the slave trade.
Yeah, man.
The Bank of England financed the voyages.
Ooh.
Lloyds of London insured the ships.
What?
The Barclays brothers also invested. London swiftly became the financial centre of the slave trade.
Of course it did.
And how ironic, the Barclays Bank has its headquarters here in West India Quay at Canary Wharf.
No way.
But aside from the West Indies,
What?
Britain had a lucrative trade with the Chinese. They'd give us porcelain, silk and tea. Marvellous.
Oh.
And in grateful reciprocation, we peddled them opium.
What?
Nice.
Drugs?
Some of those Chinese crew that came off the clippers, like the Cutty Sark, stayed in Limehouse and created London's original Chinatown.
Yep.
For some reason, this inspired terror in the hearts of the English middle classes. Writers had a field day with stories of murder in gloomy riverside alleyways, smoky opium dens, and innocent English girls ravished by the Chinese reprobates. Limehouse is where Sherlock Holmes goes to score opium, and where that mustachioed arch-villain Fu Manchu had the headquarters of his evil empire.
How brilliant is this?
But when the docks were devastated by the Luftwaffe, Chinatown moved to Soho.
The Luftwaffe.
But there's still one shining beacon of that old community, the Royal China in Canary Wharf.
The old China.
One of the best, and my family's favourite Chinese restaurant in London. On a Sunday afternoon, there's nothing me, my wife, and my two lovely daughters like more than to head down the Regent's Canal for a Sichuan dumpling. It's a lovely thing walking down the canal, below the hustle and bustle of the city above. The herons, the moorhens, the coots all making nests. Fellas fishing, for bicycles and shopping trolleys. Ah, lovely. It's a good old walk from North London, mind. Eventually spitting us out in Limehouse Basin. Limehouse, the main entrance to the entire national canal network. Lightermen would unload cargo from the ships on the Thames onto barges and send them back up the canal we've just walked down to stoke the engine of the Industrial Revolution.
Oh, yes.
And it's just a short walk now to the Royal China. But after all that walking, we're a little bit thirsty. So we head for a quick one in the Grapes. Ah, the Grapes. Dickens' favourite.
The Grapes.
It features in Our Mutual Friend as the Six Jolly Fellowship Porters.
Yep.
Standing there with a pint of beer on the balcony that hangs suspended over the river, it's easy to imagine the watermen climbing up the ladder from the water below to slake their thirst. It's a proper riverman's pub. I was once lucky enough to meet one of the last remaining lightermen. After a few beers, he told me an unforgettable story about being a kid, lying on his back on his dad's boat, heading downstream with his eyes shut. And he could tell you what part of the docks he was in just by the smell. Bananas, tea, coffee, cinnamon, spices, depending on what wharves he was floating past. Different times. But where there's large amounts of cargo being loaded and unloaded, there's going to be a bit of, well, let's call it siphoning. He told me it got to the point in the docks where there was a policeman at every gate.
What?
His uncle would leave work every night with a wheelbarrow covered with a blanket. And the copper would say, "Oi, what's in that, sunshine?" And he'd lift up the blanket and say, "Nothing." Every day, nothing. This went on for months. Years later, he bumps into the retired copper in the Barley Mow in Shadwell. And the copper says, "Here, look, do me a favour, put me out of my misery. What were you nicking?"
Wheelbarrows.
He takes a sip of his beer, looks him in the eyes and says, "Wheelbarrows." Well, after spending some time drinking up the rich atmosphere, 2 bottles of Prosecco and a couple of pints of Guinness, we step back out onto the streets of Limehouse. Now, the great thing about the Royal China is it's open all day. And now we've got the flavour. So we head whopping way to the Prospect of Whitby. I'll tell you what, this gaff has got some history. There's been a pub on this spot since 1520. Used to be known as the Devil's Tavern because of its dubious clientele. It was a proper dodgy den of sailors, smugglers and scurvy sea dogs. I love this stuff. My 2 daughters and my wife are looking a bit bored at this point, but I've really got the wind in my sails. Oi, listen, that old bastard hanging Judge Jeffreys used to like nothing more than sitting on the terrace here, sipping his pint, watching pirates being hanged on the shoreline.
What?
And any sailor could find himself at execution dock for smuggling, mutiny, sodomy, or piracy. Kids, why are pirates called pirates? Oi, leave it out, Dad, because they just are. What should we do with a drunken sailor? What should we do with a drunken sailor? What should we do with a drunken sailor? Early in the morning, hooray, and up she rises, hooray, and up she rises, hooray, and up she rises early in the morning. Shave his belly with a rusty razor, shave his belly with a rusty razor, shave his belly with a rusty razor, early in the morning. I'm somewhat surprised that in this ancient seafaring tavern no one else is joining in. And one of the most famous pirates to be killed here was Captain Kidd. Oi, well spotted. You're right, that's the next pub down. Come on, drink up. And we stagger down the road and into the Captain Kidd. It's a lovely clear night, so we sit outside overlooking the dark flowing river. He was a wily old sod, was that Captain Kidd. Buried his loot so no one could find it. He was the inspiration for Long John Silver. He was a renowned sailor, but they changed the rules while he was out at sea. He left as a privateer and returned as a pirate, and was hanged here at Execution Dock. Just for good measure, after they hanged him, they left his body till 3 tides had washed over his head and stuck his decomposing body on a pole for all to see as they sailed past.
Charming.
But of course, one man's privateer is another man's pirate. You Walter Raleigh, Francis Drake, knighted by the Queen, heroes. But you ask the Spanish what they thought of them. The captains whose gold they plundered. The towns they raped and pillaged. Still, yeah, good lads, you know, give them a knighthood.
Oh, well, that's the one. Look at that. Look at that.
You teach the youth about Christopher Columbus.
Yeah.
And you said he was a very great man.
Yeah.
You teach the youth about Marco Polo. And you say he was a very great man. You teach the youth about the pirate Hawkins. And you said he was a very great man. You teach the youth about the pirate Morgan. And you said he was a very great man. So you can't blame the youth. No, you can't fool the youth.
What?
You can't blame the youth of today. No, you can't fool the youth. What these great men were doing, raping, kidnapping, and killing.
What?
So cold.
What?
Great men were doing,
What?
robbing, raping,
What?
and kidnapping. There's no way around it. It's all piracy in the end. Colonialism. That's all it basically is, nicking stuff that wasn't ours.
That's
and
it.
this idea of discovery.
What?
Don't give me discovery. What are you lot doing here? What?
What?
Never mind indigenous.
What?
Do you know how long it took me and my mates to get here?
Anglo-Saxon?
To discover your gaff?
What?
Well, you get your hands off that gold and all. That's mine, by the way. I turn round and everyone's gone back inside the pub. I look right down the Thames, sparkling in the moonlight. And hang on, that's the town of Ramsgate. So, there we are at the bar, in the town of Ramsgate. And as he's pulling my pint, the barman is absolutely fascinated. Did you know? Yeah, mate, a pint was a dangerous thing in this pub. 'Cause some nice fella would offer you a beer. That's kind, don't mind if I do, and then he'd offer you another one. That's mighty generous.
Oh, get ready for this.
But before you knew it, you'd wake up on a boat in the middle of the Thames. You'd just signed your life over to His
Shanghai.
Majesty's Navy. Press
You've been shanghaied. What?
ganged. The barman's wandered off. I take the drinks over to my wife and daughter sitting in the corner. I know they're a bit bored, but I love this stuff. And never mind homeschooling, this is proper interesting. It's good for them. Now listen, do you remember that hanging Judge Jeffries I was on about? Oh, Dad, leave it now. No, hang on, give us a chance. 3 Kisses, got his nickname. Oh boy, did he love an hanging. After the Monmouth Rebellion, he sentenced 300 rebels to death. But he wasn't completely cold-hearted. No, he let another 500 off with transportation. After the Glorious Revolution, James II had to leg it out of the country, leaving his old pal, the judge, in the lurch. And believe me, he was shitting himself. So he dressed up as a sailor. He was waiting for a boat to get out of the country, but they caught him right here in the town of Ramsgate. Oh, yeah, I know you, you horrible little bastard. Don't you yo-ho me. You tried to have me hanged. And he was bundled, terrified, and begging for his life into the tower. And it couldn't have happened to a nicer man. Oi! Viva, my youngest, is the first to wake up. Dad, I'm starving. So we all stagger slightly worse for wear back in the direction of the Royal China. Crossing the bridge over the Limehouse Basin, Viva says to me, Dad, it looks like they've got newspapers all over the windows. I said, don't worry about that. We've been going here for years, I know the owner. But guess what? When we get there,
What?
it's shut.
No way.
At this point, it would be
Lockdown. Lock in.
fair to say I am not popular. I consider disguising myself as a sailor. I'm surrounded by a hungry, drunken, angry rabble. But amongst it arguing, my elder daughter, Scarlett, pipes up. Hold on, look, it's the jetty for the Clipper. They're open all day in Chinatown. We could get the riverboat and go up west. There's a huge cheer. I'm saved. Szechuan dumplings, here we come. For those that don't know, the Thames Clipper goes from Canary Wharf all the way down to the embankment. Drops you off literally 5 minutes from Gerrard Street, Chinatown. I decide to wrestle control of this disaster. Stand back, I'll get the tickets. At this rate with you lot, we'll end up at the Thames barrier. Calm down, I've got this. So we pile on the boat and get settled in for the 40-minute journey up west. Lovely seeing the Thames at this time of night, beautiful. The moon reflecting off the water. Puts me in mind of those lightermen plying their trade.
Later.
Romance of the river.
Later.
All them lovely lit up bridges, Tower Bridge, London Bridge, Waterloo Bridge. We'll be on the embankment in no time. Hold on a minute. Why have we stopped?
Please disembark here for Rotherhithe.
Oh, balls. I've only gone and bought tickets for the ferry.
Balls.
A shuttle service from one side of the river to the other.
Chicken balls.
Everyone's giving me daggers. Oi, what do you mean that was the last one? Oi, wait! As I stand in front of my highly disgruntled family at 10 p.m. at night in Rotherhithe, which is not much more than a huge suburban housing estate,
It's
on
where-
the very spot where the
It's where our Kevin lives. Shh.
pirates' bodies were hung
Sorry, Kev. Just a joke.
as a gruesome message to others. I'm particularly glad there's no rope hanging about. I met my girl at Woolwich Pier, beneath a big crane standing. And all the love I felt for her, it passed all understanding. Took her sailing on the river, flow, sweet river, flow. London town was mine to give her, sweet Thames, flow softly. At London Yard I held her hand, at Blackwall Point I faced her. At the Isle of Dogs I kissed her mouth and tenderly embraced her. Heard the bells of Greenwich ringing, flow, sweet river, flow. All that time my heart was singing, sweet Thames, flow softly. Limehouse Reach I gave her there, flow, sweet river, flow. As a ribbon for her hair, sweet Thames, flow softly.
Go on, Suggs.
From Shadwell Dock to Nime Ells Reach, we cheek to cheek were dancing.
Oh.
A necklace made of London Bridge, her beauty was enhancing. Kissed her once again at Wapping, flow, sweet river, flow.
Whopping.
After that, there was no stopping. Sweet Thames, flow softly. From Rotherhithe to Putney Bridge, my love I was declaring. And she from Kew to Islewood, her love for me was swearing. And now, alas, the tide has changed. My love, she has gone from me. And the winter's frost has touched my heart and left its blight upon me. Swift the Thames flows to the sea, flow, sweet river, flow, bearing ships and part of me. Sweet Thames, flow softly.
Oh. Beautiful. Beautiful.
And a hop, skip and a jump from Rotherhithe to the west, and you're in Deptford. Deptford. Proper old Docklands.
Debt, Ford, debt and water. Oxford, Deptford, Papa Ford. Sorry, I'm ruining it.
Where the boats of the Royal Navy were built, men of war, the ships that fought the Spanish Armada. Nelson cast off from here. Captain Cook sailed in the Endeavour from Deptford, as did Captain Bligh in the ill-fated Bounty. But Deptford was a rough old place, and you wouldn't want to wander those streets at night. It was the sort of place you could get stabbed in a pub arguing over the bill, as happened to Christopher Marlowe. But if Deptford was shipyards, dark alleyways and knife crime, next door in Greenwich, it was stuccoed buildings, palaces and parks. And what a park! It was in Greenwich Park I got my first job. I was 15. It was the summer holidays. My mum's mate, who was an artist, had done this installation in the park of giant, multicoloured inflatable balls that you could walk through. My job basically involved collecting the money and making sure the punters took their shoes off before they went in. Word had got around, and it was becoming very popular with the tourists. It was my first day, and things were going really well, when this gang of Herberts turned up from Deptford. I was kind of worried, but I was on a commission. So having made sure they took their shoes off, I let them in. Next thing, from behind me, I hear this terrible hissing sound. Turns out, true to form, the Deptford boys have stabbed the balls to death. I turn around and there's a load of bewildered figures flailing about, draped in sagging iridescent plastic. I went home. This enormous park was once the back garden of the Palace of Placentia, what the Tudors called home. Birthplace of that syphilitic nugget, Henry VIII, and both of his daughters, the future queens, Mary and Elizabeth. As kids, they played in this very park. Where the main palace once stood, in its place, they built the majestic Naval Academy, which you can still see to this day. The new Queen Mary wasn't too pleased that the academy would block her view of the river, so they had to build it in two halves, with a bloody great gap in the middle. Yes, she made certain that the Palace of Placentia had a womb with a view. Thank you. And they built it with vast windows to allow for all the navel gazing.
Oh, genius.
Thank you very much. I'm here all week. But of all the incredible things that happened here, the most incredible was the invention of time. Yes, my friends, Greenwich Mean Time. And the thing about the prime meridian is, well, longitude. It's such an abstract concept. Best left to Brian Cox and his infinite monkeys.
Shut up.
As a blues guitarist once said to me, until I had to do a radio interview in the morning, I never realised there were two 10 o'clocks in one day. And from here, you can just about see further down the river the spikes of that massive tent, the Millennium Dome. An awesome structure that was going to replicate the Skylon and the hugely successful Festival of Britain in the 1950s. But they hadn't really worked out what they were going to put in it. Hello? Hello? Is anyone here? But the O2, as it became to be known, turned out to be one of the best music venues in the world. And I can't tell you how pleased I was to be on stage in front of 16,000 adoring Madness fans, all jumping up and down, singing along. And as I look to my left, I can see my family and all my mates waving their arms in the air. It's one of the best nights of my life. After the show, we decide we're going to head up west for a congratulatory drink in Soho. We've got the cars to take the family. Everyone's heading out arm in arm. But it turns out my mate Ed's got a boat on the jetty. He says, "Do you want to go up west in style?" My lovely wife Anne is worried. "I don't think it's a good idea, Suggs. The water's far too choppy and it's bloody cold. If you have an accident, you won't last 5 minutes in there." But I'm filled with post-gig adrenaline and a couple of beers. Oh, pish, it'll be fine. The high seas, here we come, the hearties. Me, Ed, and our mate, Mustachioed Mike, pile onto the jetty. I have to say that when he said, "I'll take you in style," I was expecting something slightly more than a rib. Basically, an overpowered inflatable dinghy. And shiver me bloody timbers, Anne's right, it is cold. We bundle into the boat, and there's a twinkle in his eye when Ed sparks up the two enormous engines. "Here we go, Suggsy. Yeah, I tell you what, there's no speed limit on this part of the river. We'll beat them by a mile." I'm hanging on to the sides for dear life, and Anne's words are ringing in my ears. But mate, I tell you what, ain't half beautiful going up the river at this time of night. Lovely to see London from this perspective, flying past with a spray on your face. Here, look, there's the Naval Academy. Oi, the bloody Cutty Sark. Isn't it beautiful? Look there on the right, see? That's the West India docks. Oi, there's the grapes. I've never seen it from the water before. Mustachioed Mike is mouthing wordlessly at me, and I realise he can't hear my fascinating narrative as my voice is lost in the wind. Eventually, Ed drops me off at Festival Pier because he's got to moor his boat in Chelsea and get a cab back. I climb up onto Waterloo Bridge and watch him zip off around the bend. I mean, what was Anne worrying about? What did she know? Well, what I didn't know was that the next bridge The bow of a clipper hit the rib, which popped, throwing Ed and mustachioed Mike up into the air and into the water. Rumour has it, Ed survived by hanging on to Mike's fulsome moustache in the 5 seconds before the clipper's quick-witted crew threw in the life rings. They were very lucky to survive. Oblivious, I stand on Waterloo Bridge, staring dreamily back down Old Father Thames. These waters have carried the plunder of nations, the finance of an empire, seen pirates, lightermen, watermen, warships, battleships, clippers and barges. It's carried exotic goods from all over the world to feed the needs of Great Britain. The river has seen so much, been integral to the story of this nation, from the city to the docks and all the way out to the sea. Who'd have thought it?
Guys.
I've been Suggs, and this was my love letter to London.
It's good night from me, Sovereign Jeremita, and that was Capers and Chaos from the madness man himself, Suggs. He crafted another love letter and took us on a trip around London's docklands, written by Suggs with Owen Lewis, directed by Owen Lewis. Sovereign G in the background there, adding a little bit of what, and musical director Owen Parker, producer Richard Melvin, and that was a Dabster production for. And there we go, paid for by the license payer on a national radio. I hope you enjoyed that. I might give you another one. I've got a few here. Love to Suggs. What a legend. Iconic. British. I'm not saying he's a saint. I'm not saying he's perfect. But for a bedtime, little Sunday sonnet there of this evening. That would be the 21st of February. all a bit glum and grim with what's going off on the COVID and the virus, and you know what's happening elsewhere, and the lack of happiness, holidays, mental health taking a nosedive to the depth, barrel charges going off left, right, and centre. So love from me, your man, the governor, Sovereign Jeremita Suggs. And we'll see you soon. Thank you to the Indie Scribes. Thank you to SPLS Pro supporters. We do this because we can and because we love ya. All right, me old China. Bless up. Much love. Ciao bello. Ciao bella. You is my fella.